Hello, everybody, and welcome to Los Fanboys, the official movie and TV podcast of LRMOnline.com. My name's Joseph Jammer Medina, and today I'm here with David Kozlowski.
Hey, from San Francisco. Hello, everyone.
All right, so clearly this is very different from what we're normally doing. Normally, it's an audio podcast, and when I do video stuff, it's normally not camera things. But we're looking to change things up. Also, you may notice this is a lot shorter than normal. It's going to be around 10 to 15 minutes as opposed to an hour, hour and a half. The big difference is that it's going to be a daily podcast. So every day we're going to be tackling some big piece of news. The box office. We were talking about James Bond in a bit, things like that. So we're trying new things, with video, with the podcast. So just get back to us on the site, comment under the article, or on the SoundCloud format, or wherever you see this, and let us know what you think of it. We want to know how to make this better for you. And so this is just an experiment, but let's go ahead and hop into it. This is Monday, which means that we will be talking about the box office. So, starting off with The Dark Tower. I think it's before going into it, I think it's worth talking about that this is the worst weekend in the summer of 2017. And that's it's in a summer that has already been kind of lackluster, save for, some saving grace movies like Wonder Woman, maybe Guardians of the Galaxy, if you count that as a summer movie, Spider-Man: Homecoming, but even that has only, I think it's just made maybe under 600 million at this point. So nothing gigantic, but this has not been good. Dark Tower, the big Stephen King movie, though not as big as I thought. It was only made for $60 million. It came in at number one with only $19.5 million. Not too great. In number two, Dunkirk, we have it holding on strong, dropping only 33.9%. This is its third week. It's making $17.6 million. As of right now, I have it at around $300+ million in terms of the worldwide box office, and I think that puts it very clearly within the profitable range. Number three, for some reason, people are still watching the fucking Emoji Movie. I don't understand why, but we had 12.35 million's worth of people seeing that movie for this week. Number four, Girls Trip, hanging on, dropped 41.9% in its third week. And then number five, getting a wide release, Kidnap, which is the new Halle Berry movie, which I know fuck all about. What stood out to you about this weekend, David?
Well, if you look back this time 1 year ago, here was the top five. Suicide Squad, Jason Bourne, Bad Moms, The Secret Life of Pets, and Star Trek Beyond. That is quite a lineup compared to what we had this weekend, which, correct me if I'm wrong, outside of the Dark Tower, it was Dark Tower, Dunkirk, Emoji, and Girls Trip, and Kidnap. That's quite a change from a year ago.
Yeah.
And with all of the money that Sony spent on the Dark Tower, I thought it would do a hell of a lot better than 19 million. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I actually thought for a while, I thought it was about 100 million. I thought it was $100 million movie, like most movies are nowadays, or 100+ million. I started to get very apprehensive about it when I saw the trailers. I haven't read the books. I've read one of the books. I read The Gunslinger, or part of it. I got 3/4 of the way through, but it was so boring, and I was like, I'm not gonna go through this anymore. And I normally like Stephen King. I just did not like this movie or this book. And but I know it has 7 or 8 giant books, so the mythology has to be deep. And then based on what we heard, it's like its own story, or it's a remix / its own story. I actually never saw the movie, so I can't really say, and I haven't read the book, so I wouldn't know anyway. But it seemed like it was its own thing, that it wasn't necessarily adapting the material, which I thought was really weird. And I knew there was a red flag, especially when we found out it was like 95 minutes long or 100
Right.
minutes long. It just seemed like I can understand people when they want shorter movies, but when you're pulling from such a heavy mythology, it just seems like you're kind of barking up the wrong tree with that approach. So, and the fact that we didn't get a test screening until Wednesday, another red flag for a movie that's coming out Thursday night. It just, things were adding up in a bad way for this movie, and it kind of culminated in this 19.5 million, which I'm not sure qualifies as a flop because it was only a $60 million movie, meaning that, if it makes, $150 million or more worldwide, it may be in the clear.
But, that's what I find interesting as contrast. So if you look at the Suicide Squad last year, it had like a $250 million budget on a property that not a lot of people really knew about. Just like when the original Guardians of the Galaxy came out, not a lot of people outside of comic book, hardcore comic book fans really knew that property. But you got Dark Tower, and people have known about this since it came out in '82. And like you said, there's 8 books in the whole series, and it just begs the question of why do they only spend 60 million on budget? Couldn't they? Like you said, there's a great deal of mythology. Why not put more money and more time into developing this thing and making it the bigger picture? I just can't believe it doesn't. They didn't even try to compete with Suicide Squad, particularly when Suicide Squad made so much money just 1 year ago.
I think the problem is cold feet. It's a really ambitious project, so they tried to get in there with as low an entry point as possible. If you spend $60 million and it flops, it's better than if you spend $250 million and it flops. I mean, that's obviously it's basic way of looking at it, but I think that's kind of what they were looking at. They'd rather dip their toe into a freezing river than jump in and die along the way. So I get it, but it is disappointing because it's a disservice to the material. Which
Right.
I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm assuming that it is rich with all kinds of mythology that is in no way, shape, or form represented in this movie.
Well, from a Stephen King standpoint, and like you, I've read quite a bit of King over the years. I guess as he went through his 8 books in the Dark Tower, it really was like a tour through all the Stephen King worlds. Like the Dark Tower is the thread, and the Man in Black, particularly the Matthew McConaughey character, has been the evil character either in the forefront or the background of a lot of Stephen King books. So again, it just felt like that was just another missed opportunity. And as I read through a lot of the reviews uh, at the end of last week, like you said, that's when all the reviews came out. But that's what most of the reviewers are saying, that it was a lost opportunity or missed opportunity, poor dialogue. It just like a lot of things that could have been fixed or avoided at the screenplay level was where at least some of the problems originated.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. But what do you guys think? What did you think of the box office? Did you like the Dark Tower? Did you have a chance to see it? Did you see Kidnap? Did you see the Emoji Movie for some reason? Maybe you have kids. Let us know in the comments down below, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. But from there, let's move on to sort of the big ticket item, at least so far today, and that's James Bond. So as you can see here, Daniel Craig is Bond. He's been Bond for the past 4 films. He's been rumored to have been locked down as a Bond once again for the 5th movie. So there's a rumor comes out of the Sun, which is a tabloid. So I guess take it with a grain of salt, but it is a rumor. We should talk about it. That in the past we've been unsure whether or not Daniel Craig would be coming back for another James Bond. Lately, it's been, I'd say more than rumored. It's been almost reportedly confirmed that he's on board for the 5th film. But what about a potential 6th movie? Like, is that a possibility? I don't think anyone was even thinking that was a remote possibility. But according to a source from The Sun, it says, there was plenty of talk about who would be the next Bond, but Barbara Broccoli, who produces the movies, has managed to talk Daniel into 2 more films. He is loved by audiences around the world and has driven a real resurgence for the movies at the box office. So bosses knew they couldn't lose him just yet. The script is nearly ready for the 25th film, provisionally titled Shatterhand, and scheduled to be released in November of 2019. So there's no time to waste in getting Daniel locked in. But the deal is almost done, and the idea of returning to On Her Majesty's Secret Service for the 26th movie is really exciting. What do you think about this, David? Do you actually think that we're going to be getting a 26th James Bond with Daniel Craig?
Well, it's funny. I remember reading all the stuff last year and seeing the interviews where Craig was so down on Spectre and just the character in general. I was really surprised when we recently heard that he was thinking about coming back. And then we heard maybe the new director, and I had to wonder, was there something to that? So interesting you brought up The Sun. There was another article in The Sun, and I'll just read the lead to it. Dan, as in Daniel Craig, Dan's Bond U-turn. Daniel Craig changed his mind about reprising James Bond role after director Sam Mendes quit. And the gist of the article is that both Daniel Craig and Sam Mendes are highly creative individuals and also very intense, driven individuals. And I guess they just rubbed each other the wrong way over the course of making those 2 films. So it sounds like, maybe some of Craig's antipathy and, reticence about portraying Bond yet again had more to do with Sam Mendes or the quality of the script. And now maybe he's kind of re-energized with the idea of some younger director or some more flexible director, or maybe he's even getting more creative control. That's at least what it seems like from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. That this is assuming that the report is real, because we still don't know. Like in the past, The Sun has been accused of libel. If I recall correctly, a few years ago, Russell Brand was someone who had a settlement outside of court with them for libel. So take what they say with a grain of salt. We really don't know, but that's not to say it can't be true. For all we know, like that was a very specific quote from somebody, and I'd like to think they know they have some connection. Otherwise, why bring it up? But assuming it's real, I believe it. I believe that what you just said makes sense because he seemed exhausted by the whole process by the end, and maybe had everything to do with his collaborator and Sam Mendes, the director. And he'd worked with him for 2 films, one of which was Skyfall, which was a fantastic movie. Maybe just working one after another was just too much for the two, or maybe it had to do with the script in some way, or the portrayal of the character, who I thought was very, what's the word, Hulk-like Inspector, very shallow, very kind of brutish, I guess, is one way. Maybe it's that approach that he didn't care for. Which I guess is weird because it has nothing to do with Sam Mendes himself, but whoever wrote the script. Regardless, I buy the fact that maybe it had to do with Sam Mendes, but we really don't know for sure. Would you like to see Bond or Daniel Craig in another Bond movie, in addition to the one that we're supposedly getting already?
Well, I would, but I just wonder, as you were thinking about earlier, what direction are they taking it? Because Casino Royale was the reestablishment of Bond with Daniel Craig as kind of the militaristic Bond, right? Tough guy, built, really intense. And I like that. It was a change of pace. And then we had Skyfall, which, as you said, was just a really interesting character study. We got into the backstory of James Bond and who his parents were and how he was raised. And I thought, wow, we're going in some really interesting new directions. And then Spectre. And Spectre seemed like they were trying to wedge Daniel Craig into an old Sean Connery-esque style James Bond movie. And it just felt like the strangest pivot. It didn't feel consistent with the previous couple of films. So my real question now is, where do they go with the character and what sort of storytelling are they thinking about? Is it going to be more on the military side, more espionage? I mean, what are we really getting out of the next 2 James Bonds? So to answer your question, yeah, I'm really excited to see Daniel Craig take on James Bond again, but I'm really hopeful that they're not just going to try going back to playing the greatest hits of James Bond.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. I'm interested. I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to it because I feel like Daniel Craig, I think he had his run. It was a good run. I'm ready to see someone else take it on. So I guess in a way I'm not really happy to hear about this. But if they're going to go with it, I wish it nothing but success. I hope they do something really interesting with him. I hope I don't want to say lighten it, but I want them to make it a little less dreary. Like Spectre, even though it was, I guess, skewed more a little bit to, I wouldn't say comedic, but the ridiculous side, I still found it to be like kind of overly serious, and I kind of want them to strip that down a little bit. But that's just my personal preference. I've never been a huge spy movie guy, so I guess fuck me. Who cares what I think, right? So, what do you guys think about this potential of Daniel Craig joining? Do you believe the son, or do you think it's a bunch of bullshit? Let us know in the comments down below, and let us know if you want to see Daniel Craig return in the first place. So, where can people find you, David?
So I'm a regular writer on LRM. You can find me at LRM_David on Twitter. And I'm also writing a weekly column called LRM Weekend, which is kind of our editorial slant on the week that just took place, and looking forward to some cool stuff happening in the future. So you can reach me there at LRM_Weekend.
All right. And you can find me at Jam the Writer on Twitter. And you could also find me all over the place at lrmonline.com. Be sure to check out our Facebook page at Los Fanboys, as well as follow the official LRM Twitter account at LRM_exclusive. So thanks so much for listening, or watching in this case, and we'll see everybody next time.
Bye, everyone.